And we're live. Welcome to Orab Sports Complex. Talk Sports to Me, episode 14. I'm your host, the Sports Guru. I hope everyone's staying safe and following CDC guidelines through this difficult fight against the enemy, COVID-19. Tonight, we are going to jump right in on our topic. Title of tonight's episode is Lost Without a Fight, What Might Have Been. On Monday, March 30th, the NCAA granted all spring athletes an extra year of eligibility, yet in that they did deny winter athletes an additional year. They also, as everyone knows, there was no NCAA tournament. So this was a big. It was big for a lot of kids in terms mentally where they're at and how they're going about their business and their day-to-day thought process in terms of their ability as college athletes to stay on track with what their initial goal was to what they went to college to do. This extra year that is granted will only be given to current seniors right now. So only current senior athletes will be able to take advantage of this extra year of eligibility. First thing I want to do is I want to touch base on how the semester eligibility works in the NCAA. The way it works is entering college. So as a high school student that enters college, you're given 10 educational coursework semesters to play a total of 8 semesters. So that equates to 4 years. And so essentially a student can take a redshirt year and play 4 consecutive years after that, or a student can, play a year, and if they need to sit out a year for whatever reason, they can do that, and they can come back and play the remainder of their semesters. So one of the stipulations is that the student athlete must continue to stay at the school that they're at right now. And so if you were at UC or UK or Xavier or wherever the situation is you would have to stay there coming back next year to use your last year of eligibility. So for anyone that didn't understand how the semester eligibility worked or didn't understand how everything works in terms of eligibility, that's kind of how it works. You get 10 semesters, and in the 10 semesters, you can participate in college athletics for 8 of those. I don't know that it would be a prevalent issue, but it probably is an issue to some because they were interested in potentially transferring out maybe at the end of this year to pursue the remainder of their career somewhere else. If they're a senior and they're granted that year, they will have to stay put and stay where they're at. There are lots of hurdles that have to be crossed, and in order to make this happen, and I just made a short list of some of the obstacles that would have to take place in order for the NCAA to grant this. So one being funding. A lot of stuff comes down to money. And so funding is a huge issue in terms of how will this be funded? How will schools come up with enough scholarships? How will schools accurately make sure that students are continuing to stay on the right track with this to happen? Because a lot of students were due to graduate this spring. Another issue, roster size. A lot of every NCAA sanctioned sport has a number of how many scholarships and how many players you're allowed to carry on your roster. So roster size, because if you're graduating 2 seniors, but you got 2 kids that are coming in and both seniors decide to stay now, and you got the 2 freshmen decide to come, now you're in a situation where you've got a multiplier of people coming. So instead of the 2 players that you were trying to replace, now there's 4 players, the 2 that you had plus the 2 that are coming. Another issue will be with one of the things that they had to look into when trying to figure out how they were going to operate it and make it work was scheduling. Scheduling is an issue. As a former athletic director, I know that's always an issue for everyone. That's the hardest part of the job is scheduling. Revenue disbursement. Now, we'll get a little bit into revenue disbursement here in a little while, and I'll talk about how revenue disbursement works and how the NCAA comes up with the money and where the funding comes from and how each individual institution and each individual comes up with the money and where the funding comes from and how each individual. So that's a whole issue that we'll address, and I'll get into all that. Who makes the decision and who can return and how they can return? Because there's stipulations and there's ways that this has to happen in order for it to happen. So we're going to get like in the meat and potatoes of this whole issue here in just a little bit. And we're going to talk about how this thing is going to work. Why you ask or how you ask did this happen? Let me just give you the insight. A young lady named Allison Warman from Iowa University, the Hawkeyes, was addressed with the issue from her coaches and the coaching staff of not being able to participate this year with, her final year of track at the University of Iowa. And so what happened is she used her First Amendment right. She took advantage of it, and she got together a petition. She had 1,000 other spring athletes sign the petition. And the petition was observed, discussed, voted on, and granted by the 40-person NCAA commission that would have made that decision. Next part of granting the year, how to make it make sense for everyone that's involved. And with anything else that is such a huge decision that has such huge financial ramifications, you have to weigh the pros and cons, and you have to look at all the parties that are involved. And in this situation, the parties involved are the athletic departments, the coaches, the underclassmen, the institutions, and most importantly, the senior athletes. And so, because that's who this was all for and about, was the senior athletes. First part being, like I say before, with most situations, financially, and where is the money going to come from? And not just the money. A lot of these seniors that were potentially probably going to come back, if they're in a situation or playing a sport that doesn't have a large amount of scholarships, because something I don't think many people understand is that all football has a lot of scholarships, but they carry about 100 kids on their roster. 60 travel, I think. Basketball, I think you get 12 or 13. Baseball, we'll talk about that more in depth on how many scholarships, and with softball and so on and so forth. We do have 2 guests that will join us today. With the coronavirus, they will join us from afar via call-in. So we're excited about getting to talk to them a little bit. But each year, the NCAA does a conference disbursement. And what that is the amount of funds that they give to each conference to divide up equally in terms of how much money each conference will be able to spend and so on and so forth. So that conference disbursement per conference, and I don't know if this is Power 5 or I don't know if this is all conferences, but it's $600 million per year. Okay. Now, that number, and that's $6 million per year. Now, I mind you that each conference gets that $600 million. $600 million. Each conference gets that, okay? This year, due to no NCAA tournament, men's or women's, now we're in a situation where that will decrease by almost 2/3 to $225 million. So that'll be a loss of $343 million per conference. Now, I just want to talk about that for a second, how much money that is. That's $343 million per conference that's lost without the men's and women's NCAA basketball tournament, leaving a total of $225 million per conference. Okay. Now, that's a large sum of money, but we're talking about for the conference. So a large sum of revenue is lost with not having the NCAA tournament. And although the money can be made up, it essentially puts each institution in financially tough situations, especially with having incoming players with seniors getting an extra year, because you have to giving the senior an extra year, you can't give them a senior year at their cost. I mean, that's not the fair way to go about it or the fair way to address it. And so I haven't got to look deep enough into it to figure out how the scholarships and how the money will be split up with the different teams. But I do know that the $225 million per conference leaves each conference in a difficult situation to see financially how they're going to function, just based on the fact that it's a $343 million per conference loss. Now, I think something that a lot of folks don't understand is all sports don't receive full rides. So every collegiate sport, even at the Division I level, and I think that's something that kids miss when kids are like D1 or bust. And I hear a lot of kids that are just so dead set on being Division I athletes. And that's your dream and that's your goal, and you should pursue that. But as parents, you should get them to understand that outside of playing basketball, which is probably one of the only sports that gives full rides to all the players, you're probably not going to get a full ride. For instance, baseball has 11.7 scholarships per year. Baseball can carry a 27-man roster. Women's softball, 12 scholarships per year. They can carry a 25-player roster. So in certain sports, full rides aren't offered to every kid that plays. So people think that, you know, if you're going to a sport and you're a walk-on, that you're the only person that's paying for school. And in a lot of other sports, that's not the case, because other sports are responsible for paying. Other sports make you responsible for paying for some of your tuition. So there's a financial responsibility that comes with playing Division I college sports, just like there is with playing any other level of sport, whether it be Division III or NAI. Now, it might not be as much, but there's still a financial responsibility toward the academic and athletic portion, or advancement, I should say, that the student athlete is looking for. And for those students that play those sports, okay, which baseball, softball, golf, those are spring sports that a lot of kids will not probably choose to come back and pursue their fifth year. Men's golf receives 4.5 scholarships per year and typically carry a roster of 10 to 12 players, meaning some guys, in order to come back to school, will have to come up with almost 100% of their tuition if their scholarship has been awarded to an incoming freshman, or if they decide not to give that student athlete that money. So I think the number of student athletes, like before mentioned, that choose to come back will probably not be as high as what people expect. It was a great gesture by the NCAA, and I think that they did the right thing by offering that opportunity to the student athlete. However, with understanding how scholarships work and understanding the logistics of people coming in to replace people going out. With people not going out, I just don't think there'll be as many people that choose to use this additional year as to be expected. Now, here are some of the things that could affect the seniors. And these are just some notes that I took down just off the top of my head that I felt like would play a part in what would potentially make some of these seniors not come back. Now, many of them have jobs already. Many of them have been placed in job placement programs or have been working with a firm to help them land a job. And so for those student athletes, they will probably choose not to come back. Many have already graduated in December and are coming back to use the last year of eligibility in the spring to potentially start a master's program. The reality is, though, they could work on their master's program while still working. And so didn't get to complete their athletic obligation of the full 4 years, although they may have graduated. Another one, many have accepted graduate assistant positions who are interested in coaching careers. And those kids might be interested in going ahead and getting their college coaching career started. So that's another issue. And last but not least, for a lot of the baseball players, a lot of college baseball players get drafted and have a chance to play some form of pro baseball, whether it be A, double A, triple A, farm league, or, there's a lot of people out there who pay people to play baseball, America's pastime. And with knowing that, there's a lot of kids that were 265 this year, 245 the year before, and 240 their freshman year. And going into their senior year, they're looking to hit between 280 and 340 to 350 to allow them an opportunity to be drafted and play baseball at the next level. Do those kids go ahead and take a shot at entering the MLB draft? Or do they go ahead and try to pursue that last year? So that's another issue that we run into. So those are just some of the things that may affect whether a person chooses to come back or not. And so, it's a great gesture from the NCAA, but you just don't quite know if the NCAA, I'm sure they thought it through, but the student athlete, a lot of this is going to come down to the financial part of this situation. And I don't know if students are going to have the money to pursue that opportunity. And a lot of it is going to come down to finances. A lot of it is going to be strictly financially motivated, especially for students who grow up in single parent homes, mothers or fathers, whoever raised them, have worked really hard to try to get them to this point. And now they're at this point and it's being taken from them in a sense. And so, these are just some of the issues that you run into when looking at whether this is a good thing or not. So the money that is spent, the money that's made by the NCAA, as far as the men's and women's national tournament, I found out is a lot of what the NCAA institutions thrive off of. And so selfishly, we're all upset because we're not able to watch the tournament. But for the NCAA, they're in a really critical situation because there are so many people that are not, so many kids that are not able to do what they need to do. Our first guest is with us. Kasey Smith, Talk Sports to Me. How are you? Kasey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Folks, our first guest will be Williamsburg High School All-State selection, three-time district champion, four-time league champion, three-time all-district selection, two-time SBAAC Player of the Year, 2016 Greater Cincinnati Player of the Year, 2017 state champion, National Honor Society member, class Victorian, and the list goes on and on and on. But I'm gonna stop now, Kasey, so we can talk for a few minutes. But
right.
some of your high school accolades, are some of which are unparalleled in terms of the high school athlete, especially in this area. First, I want to congratulate you on what you've accomplished so far in your academic and athletic career, and that's on the high school front. I also want to talk about some of the things that you've accomplished in college. As a freshman, your 2018 campaign was stellar. You led your team with 10 wins, ranked second in games, led the team second in complete games, second in innings pitched, posted the third best ERA at 2.68, which is incredible in women's softball, recorded 31 strikeouts, and was GMAC honorable mention as a freshman. And the GMAC's a very tough conference.
Yes, it is.
Your 2019 campaign brought you much success as well. You had 10 starts, 24 appearances, a 7-4 record, a 3.24 ERA, which again is stellar, 58 in the third innings pitched. You threw 3 complete games. You have a winning percentage of .680. Your overall win-loss record is 17 wins and only 8 losses. That ranks 5th currently among all Cerdarville women's softball players, and you're not done yet. And you've only walked 13 batters. And you're also a GMAC all-academic team member. So it's safe to say that in the world of softball, you're what we would consider a stud, according to your statistics through your first 2 years. I just want to ask you some questions about your current softball situation and, with your junior year being cut short due to the COVID-19. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what have you been doing since you've been home from school?
Well, I haven't really had the chance to pitch a whole lot, considering we aren't really supposed to go outside and all that. Also making limited contact with people, but I have been able to work on my arm stretches and strengthening my right arm for next season, as well as going outside and doing cardio, just getting that fresh air, getting some jogs in, some runs, walking, all that. And then, of course, we still have schoolwork to do, so I'm working on that all afternoon. So it's not like we're just all going home and doing nothing. We're still practicing what we can with the limited resources we have, and still doing our work as well.
That's great. How was the news given to the team? So how did they go about telling you? And was it your coaching staff? Was it your AD? Like, how did the news come to you guys, to you and your teammates?
Yeah, it was a little complicated of a situation. Obviously, this is something that's never really happened before. But originally, the athletes were staying on campus while everyone else went home because our season hadn't been technically canceled yet. We stayed until a weekend, a Friday, Saturday weekend we were supposed to play. And then we got an email from our coach saying we were going to have an important kind of team meeting. We all kind of knew, in our hearts and our minds, that we were probably going to get canceled, but obviously we did not want it to happen. But we got the email that said we needed to have a meeting. We kind of all got together at the field, and our coach let us know that the presidents of the GMAC had gotten together to decide that they were going to end the season for all the spring sports.
So it wasn't postponed. It went from your end season to being canceled, or was there a postponement period where you were postponed for a week or two?
I believe that there was a period where the coaches wanted to do a postponing, but it was pretty short. We, as Division II, we typically follow what Division I does with the NCAA. So as soon as they started canceling seasons, we went ahead and followed them like a couple days after. So there wasn't really a whole lot of discussion on postponing, just because once D1 decided that they were going to cancel, we followed suit.
Right. I want to talk to you about the reaction of your senior teammates, because I know that was probably a tough pill for them to swallow, especially not knowing at the time that the extra year would be granted. And I'll go into a little more detail with you about that in a little bit in terms of your feelings on that. But, what was the reaction of some of your senior teammates?
Yeah, it was hard. It was definitely hard on them, especially with the seniors that we had this year, who were just amazing players. And some of them had already gotten off to like a great start. We had one girl, one of our seniors, that ended up breaking the home run record at Cerdarville this year. And it was just so disappointing for them, and obviously for the rest of us too, because they didn't get to live out that season, their final senior season. It was really tough. We did what we could to like cheer them up, I guess. We ended up getting them like some senior gifts like on the fly, just as quick as we could, just to let them know that we appreciated everything that they've done for us. But I mean, they took it really hard, and if I was in their position, I definitely would have been upset as well.
And that's the thing when I remember when I was, 17, 18, 19, 20 or 22 years old, if someone would have told me that what I had worked my whole life so hard for was being taken from me for something that was out of my control, but out of the control of others, it would be a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow when you make a mistake and it's taken from you, or it's a hard pill to swallow when your coach leaves on you and you have to make a decision on whether you want to stay or whether you want to go without them. But for it to happen this way, that is really a bad way for it to end, and would leave a bitter taste in my mouth. I know preparing for a season takes a lot of work. And do you feel like I know you, and I know I've watched you work out before when you were in high school, came down with your dad and stuff. And, I always knew that you were geared a little differently just based on how you went about your business. But, do you feel like that all the work that you put in the off season has gone in vain, or do you feel like that it's going to benefit you on down the road? Because I know a lot of people are geared in the moment, and this year there is no moment. And so for a lot of people, that means I'm going to sit back, I'm going to relax, I'm going to chill out, and I'm just going to spend some time with my family and not do anything softball related. I know that's probably not your case, but do you feel like that you put in a lot of work for no purpose this season?
I wouldn't say it was for no purpose. It was quite frustrating to put all the work in I did with my arm, because at the end of last season, I ended up getting a micro tear in my labrum, and I had some other shoulder issues. So this whole past summer, I had been going to rehab and working on getting back. I've been throwing a lot more, and once we got down into Florida, like at the beginning of this season, I was starting to finally get back and, get back into my best shape. And then it kind of got cut off. So it was frustrating, and it was hard to take in that all of that work I'd done on my shoulder kind of was not for nothing, but it kind of went to waste for this season. But having this time home is a bit helpful for me still, just to be able to rest my shoulder a little bit more, because it was still having some pain and some issues. So getting a little bit of rest time is helpful, but I don't think that anyone who is really into softball, into playing their college sport, would just say that this is a time to sit around. I think we're all definitely
trying to do what you can to get better. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on what we can to better our game, even if that means bettering our game is doing drills up against your wall with a tennis ball instead of being able to get on a field. We're all doing what we can to hone our game in this very difficult situation.
Kasey, what was the team's potential this season? Did you guys have a chance to win the conference, or make a national tournament run, or, in terms of the team aspect and the team goals, what were some of the goals that you guys had established back in the winter that you wanted to accomplish this spring?
Yeah, we always make it a goal to win conference, which is a big one for us. My freshman year, we won conference regular season, and then we made it into the final of the tournament last year. So that's always a goal of ours, is to finish top in the conference and, of course, make it to the conference tournament. I think we had a pretty good shot of possibly winning the tournament this year, which is kind of sad to say because we won't get to see if we'll be able to do that. But I think we had some really good talent. We had a lot of freshmen come in, and then obviously we had a lot of our seniors that had been playing for so long. They were super wise in the game, and I think we had some really good potential.
When you put the possibilities of what your team's goals were this year into perspective, where does that leave you in terms of, this pandemic and how it's hit our country? And, this is on a bigger scale than softball. How do you think that it will affect, the world in which we live in, per se? Because I was talking to someone yesterday and I was like, we went in the store and we both had gloves on and they had a mask on, and I was like, we're going to live like this forever. Like, this is going to change our world the way that we know it. How do you view that, or do you think that things will go back to normal at some point?
I think it'll be different for a while, just getting back into the swing of being around people, being around large groups. I think people will be a little bit more wary than they were before. Maybe a little bit more, hey, let's make sure we're doing all these things to prevent something like this happening again. But I think our team has a really good grasp of understanding that life isn't just softball and sports. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for a lot of kids in high school who are even thinking about playing in college, and college students now, that your life isn't always going to be the sport you're playing. So you have to make sure that you put the right things in perspective and in order in your life, knowing that even if I can't have softball, I'm still working on my degree for a job that I'm going to have where I can impact people's lives.
Right.
And just knowing that we are not only like developing our softball skills, but developing our character and understanding that life isn't just sports. And even though it's a big aspect, it's not always going to be there. So we have to know how to deal with that when that happens.
Exactly. Great answer. Do you have any idea on how many recruits you guys have coming in for next year?
I don't know the exact number, but I think it's pretty large. Our senior class that just graduated, I think we had 6. So it's going to be a little bit bigger. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit bigger than my class. I think we only have 3 in my class right now. I know some of them are really talented, though. We have some talented pitchers coming in. So, I'm not sure on the exact number, but I know we have a lot of great talent coming in.
Have you been able to find peace in your season, or are you still feeling the sting a little bit? Like, have you been able to find peace in the situation, or is it still leaving a sour taste in your mouth and some knots in your stomach?
For the most part, I think I've made peace with it for the most part. There'll still be some days where I'll go outside to go on a jog and it'll be such a nice day, and then I'll remember it's a Friday or a Saturday and I'll be like, oh, we could have had a double header today, right. We could be playing right now. Right. So it's kind of sad in that way, and that the weather is just so nice outside and I'm like, oh, we could be playing softball. For the most part, I'm coming to understand that this is bigger than just NCAA sports. This is like a global thing, and it's affecting people's lives. So
the thing is,
coming at it from that perspective, yeah.
The thing is, Case, what are you, 20, 21 now?
I'm 21. Okay,
so you're 21 years old. You're not supposed to. You're a 21-year-old college athlete. You're not supposed to. This is forcing you to see things from a different perspective, because in most situations, you don't have to see things this way. Like, it's the job of your parents to protect you from a lot of, as a high school student and as a college student, it's your parents' job to protect you from things that they don't want you to be exposed to, and to make sure that you're staying on the right path, to stay focused on your career goals and your academic and athletic goals. And this is something that nobody can protect you from, and it's one of those things where, uh, there's certain things that kids just shouldn't have to experience, but this is something that we all have to experience. And I know in my lifetime, this is the first thing that's ever happened that we've all had to experience, because even like with 9/11, it impacted us as a country, but it didn't impact us in Ohio the way it impacted the people that lived and had families in the building, But
Yeah.
this is affecting all of us. And so this is really, really, really a different situation. Let's switch gears for a second. Tell me about your parents and how disappointed they are in not being able to see you compete this year. I know your dad really, really well. He's a good friend of mine. I've met your mom. She's a lovely lady, nice lady. And I know that there's no bigger softball fans for Kasey Smith in the world than your parents. And so I know how much they enjoy driving up to Cerdarville and traveling with you and getting to see you do your thing. And you've been really good for a really long time. And so they're really proud of you. And so, kind of what are they saying, about not being able to see you compete this year? Because I talked to your dad yesterday on the phone, and we never really got into much detail about that, but I know he's probably hurting just as much as you are at this point.
Yeah, they're definitely just as sad as I am about the season not being able to happen. I mean, they've been going to my softball games since I was 5, so they're definitely super invested in it. They got to come down to Florida for a little bit to watch some of our games, so they got to see me pitch a little bit. Not a lot, though, but they're definitely disappointed because softball is like a big part of our lives.
A big part of your family. Yeah,
I've been playing it for so long, so they're definitely saddened that they can't watch the team. Yeah.
So two more things. One thing is, this isn't going to affect you the same way that it affects it affects you differently, because the seniors have gotten to play 3 full seasons. If they so desire, they can come back next year and play a full season. But for you, this season is lost. And so how do you think that this will affect the rosters and roster sizes and positions and playing time? And how do you think that this will affect all that moving forward?
I think if the seniors do decide to come back on any team, it'll definitely make things a little bit more complicated, just because there are senior classes that are small, and then you have recruiting classes that are large, and the other way around. It'll definitely affect probably scholarships, and I think it'll make competition just a little bit harder. If you have a senior coming back that's been like a 4-year starter, but you have a freshman coming in that's just as talented, I think it's going to make competing for those positions just more tense, in that aspect. And just team chemistry, because you never know like who's coming in, who's leaving. So I think it could cause maybe some issues. I know it's beneficial to the seniors, obviously, to get that one more season, but I think it could definitely cause some problems with playing time, scholarships, and things like that. So those are just things I think we'd have to look out for in the coming season.
Last question. What would your message, or me asking you a question to make a comment, what would your message be to a young aspiring athlete facing adversity and the fear of having so much to lose?
I would definitely say just continue to work hard and put the time in. I know that's kind of cliche, but you can't control what's happening right now. So just let that be and continue to work hard and do what you can to make your game better, make yourself better, improve in all areas of life. It's just a chance to see that sometimes it's okay to not have sports in your life at all times, and you need to deal with that in positive ways as of like right now,
It's affected me, driving me crazy that I can't be in the gym with my players right now. I mean, it's not just affecting the athlete, it's affecting a lot of people, and so that's that's a whole nother issue. Kasey, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We wish you the best of luck moving forward. Hate the fact that you're losing this season, but I'm sure knowing you and knowing your family and the stock that you come from, you will bounce back against Mother Corona, and I'm sure you will be better than ever.
Thank you for having me.
Tell your parents I said hello.
All right.
A huge thank you to Kasey Smith, student athlete at Cerdarville University. Thanks for joining us on Sports Talk Sports to Me. I want to talk about right now how this will cripple the ability of the senior student athlete in terms of finding a job. If they're not used to the extra, if they choose not to use the extra year, because let's face it, they're going to graduate here in a couple of months, or some have already graduated, and they're walking into a world where corporate America basically is not on the hunt for college educated graduates that are seeking jobs between $40,000 and $60,000 a year at entry level positions. It's just not where we're at as a country. The stock market has crashed. I mean, we're in a bad place for this 2020 class. At least the high school 2020 seniors have college to go to, or the military, because eventually colleges will open back up and the military is always accepting folks. But for the college senior that's looking for a job right now, they're graduating college at the worst time because there are no jobs. Corporate America is basically shut down right now. So they're going to have to take a lot of jobs right now. A lot of the places that are essential are places that don't require college educated people to work those jobs. And so another thing is there's so many students that are working spring internships to complete internship hours, and they are affected because so many student athletes are desperately seeking answers in terms of what they should be doing right now, and just not senior athletes, but senior college students in general. And it's in a time where no time frame can really be put on when we can get back to life as normal. And so this isn't, we tell kids that, adult life is normal, but right now life is not normal because in most cases their lives are on hold. For most people, their lives are on hold. Next up, I want to talk to our next guest, a young man that I have known for a long, long time. Great kid, comes from a great family. He is a knockdown shooter. What a lot of people don't know. He can shoot the ball. So, like I say, I've known him since he was in the second grade. He's a knockdown shooter on the basketball court. He used to be. I don't know if he still is. Played his collegiate golf at Eastern Kentucky University, a D1 institution in Richmond, Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is a member of the Ohio Valley Conference. There's Maysville ties at Eastern Kentucky. As a former Mason County native, was an assistant coach for Coach McHale there several years ago, and Terrence Commodore. I would like to welcome Mr. Tyler Lippert. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm great, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir, man. So first, I just want to run through some of your high school accomplishments and accolades and some of your college stuff, and then we'll get into some conversation here for a bit. But as a high school golfer, you were two-time first-team All-State, an All-Region and All-Kentucky selection in 2014 and 2015. You had a season average of 70.5, what at most courses is below average a below par score average. You competed at Mason County High School in Maysville, Kentucky, on a really good team. That team was stacked. That team had B.J. Knox and Chandler. What was Chandler's last name? Chandler Clark. And you had Brian Walton was on that team, and yourself. That team.
Honestly, that wasn't even the best team I was a part of, Jason.
Wow, that team was loaded, man. I remember that team. All you guys are pigs.
Year we were cooking.
Yeah, I remember you played varsity as soon as you could, right?
Yeah, so I joined I think back then I think I was the 7th grade year was obviously the first year I competed on varsity. Mm-hmm. And I was just a little bit undersized to do it on 6th grade. And, golfers in Maysville are so good that I wasn't quite ready to be on there as a 6th grader.
Right. In your college career, you had a total of 11 collegiate starts, 2 as a freshman, shooting a low of 71. As a sophomore, you had a season best 54-hole total of 223. Last season as a junior, you had an average of 74, shooting 2 under 69, which tied you for 12th in the Marshall Invitational with a 2-day total of 139. 3 under one of those days. You improved your 54-hole total from 223 to 215, earning 11th at the Bobby Nichols. And more importantly, you earned you earned OVC Commissioner Honor Roll all 3 years. And so you were really, 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 really successful in your first 3 years. And we're on the brink of probably having a breakout year this year is what I would assume based on the statistics that you've had being a starter for the whole 3 years that you've been there so far. So, I just want to ask you some questions here about, your situation. And I got to catch my breath first because reading off all your accolades, it just took my breath away.
Come on now.
But tell me about the roller coaster that you've been on over the past 4 weeks, from being postponed to being canceled, and then so at one point the season was postponed, and then the season was canceled, and then once the season was canceled, you had the emotions of losing your senior year. Then you were told a week later or 2 that you were granted an extra year. So trying to make the decision on if you should or shouldn't or could afford, or, how did you go about knowing if you were prepared to return, or was it just automatically, it's just time to transition to life without college? Like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, so we were actually on our way back from a tournament in Myrtle Beach when the whole basically when everything blew up, when Rudy Gobert got tested and was positive, and then the NBA was canceled. So we were on the road on the way back from Myrtle Beach when all that happened. So I kind of had a pretty good indication of when the NBA canceled their season that everything else was going to follow. Just because the NBA doesn't just cancel or postpone or delay their season for no reason.
Right.
And obviously you can't sit here and say that, or you can't have the professional athletes not play and then let the guys that aren't being paid to play. You can't force those guys to play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What were your projections for yourself this spring? Like, what did you have in mind for yourself? Like, what goals had you set for yourself this season?
Yeah. So golf is, and the NCAA is obviously a fall and a spring sport. So we played 5 tournaments back in the fall, and then we played 2 of our 5 this spring, not counting our conference tournament.
Gotcha.
So really, I was kind of had one tournament that I was eyeballing that I thought that I had a really good shot of winning. That was the one Tennessee Tech. Mm-hmm. That was the one that I finished like 11th or 12th at last year.
The Bob Nichols?
Yeah, the Bobby Nichols.
Yeah, they finished 11th.
Mm-hmm. That's really where I thought I had a really good shot of winning, just because I've played that course all 3 years, or the previous 3 years, and then it just kind of suited my eye really well. So that was really the one that I had circled as far as me personally going. And then obviously our team, the goal every year is to win the OVC. We're one of EKU's, ever since I can remember, EKU's always been one of the top 3 teams in the OVC as far as golf goes. We finished my senior year of high school, they won the OVC, and then my freshman and sophomore year, we finished runner-up. So, we're always right there for conference, and that's always our goal at the end of the day is to win the OVC and make it to regionals.
Gotcha. What was the reaction of yourself and your teammates when, when they came out with the news that the season would be on your way back from Myrtle Beach or wherever you were on your way back from? Like, what was?
Yeah. So we really didn't hear anything about the NCAA until I think the NBA announced it on Wednesday and we were on Thursday. So we weren't notified, or really the spring sports weren't notified until they canceled everything. So it was like Thursday afternoon, and I kind of realized that when they postponed or canceled the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament that we weren't going to be playing again. So it kind of hit me faster because that's just kind of I'm more realistic about things when it comes to that. So I knew in advance that it was probably going to be the end.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I was heartbroken. And then so we had a team meeting on that Friday, and our coach kind of just gave us 3 scenarios, and one of them was kind of his fantasy. The second one was kind of still a fantasy to where we would be playing. I think the date at that time was like April the 13th, when we would possibly be playing again. And then his realistic version was just that the season was going to be canceled, and it was really just a tough meeting to go through because there was a lot of tears. We had 3 seniors on our team, and then obviously we've got 4 guys coming in that'll be joining the team with whoever decides to return. Right. So it was just a really tough scenario for all of us.
Tell us about your mental approach to accepting the cancellation of a season, because one thing, I know you're like you're a realistic guy. I mean, I knew that, what grade was it when you stopped playing basketball? I mean, you weren't growing, and
fourth or fifth.
Right. I mean, you stopped growing, and you realized that basketball probably wasn't going to be your thing, and you put your concentration and your focus in other areas because you were realistic back then that you might not be the biggest guy, and so what was your mental approach to accepting the cancellation of the season?
I mean, for golf, it's not as terrible as it is for baseball and softball and sports like that because we've already played 3/4 of our season. So really, it just ended a month and a half sooner than it probably should have. So that's not as terrible as, only getting to play 10 games of, however many, I'm not sure how many games a college baseball team plays, but, we had been playing and practicing since school started in August. So it's not like we didn't get to do anything at all.
Right.
We got to fulfill, 3/4 of our season. And it sucks that we didn't get the chance to win conference and go to nationals or regionals and stuff. But, there's more things important in life than golf.
Well,
golf courses are still open.
You played today.
Yeah, I've played just about every day.
Yeah, so
it's not like I can't go out and play golf whenever I want to. Like, there's not baseball. Just pick up baseball games like that.
How do you what's your typical day in staying polished for golf? Like, I know you play a lot, and I know all the guys at all the Maysville courses, Kenton Station and the Country Club and Laurel Oaks and all those places. I know that you're always welcomed. You and your dad are always welcomed at those places, and you and your buddies play a lot there. But I know you like to travel and play a lot too. So what are some of the things that you do in the off season? Because just like basketball, you get better playing games. Golf, you get better playing rounds, but you got to do skill work too. So what is some of the skill work that you do in the off season to try to stay polished?
Yeah, it's just a lot of fundamentals. Chipping and putting. Those are things that translate regardless of whether you're playing in Maysville or you're playing in Florida. It's just simple thing. With golf, it's a sport where the simple things are what matters the most. You can. I don't care if you hit it 300 yards, but if you can't chip and putt, you're probably not going to be able to score very well.
Right.
So that's something that my dad instilled in me at a very young age was if you can't get up and down for par, then it's not going to matter how far you hit it or how straight you hit it.
Roy McVeigh said, "Drive for show and putt for dough."
Exactly.
Was that his name, Roy McVeigh on 10 Cup?
Roy McAvoy.
Roy McAvoy.
Close enough.
If you were decide to go back, what would be some of the reasons? What would the reasons be if you were decided to go back and play, the extra season that they allowed you to? And we'll get into more later on about whether you will or you won't, or what are some of the reasons that you won't. But if you were to go back, what would be some of the reasons that you would go back?
Probably two main things. One would be, to get started on my master's degree. And then the other reason would to give my parents another chance or more opportunities to see me play at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to come to Myrtle Beach, which ended up being the last one so far, or as of right now, they were there for that, and that makes it a little bit easier knowing that they were there to see the last as of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the two main things that would keep me, or that would bring me back, is the master's degree, and then my parents getting to see it and know that it would hopefully this doesn't happen again next year, but it would be the last.
Right. Financially, what would be the difference in returning as opposed to what is financially available for you now? Like if you were to go back, what do you stand to lose financially? Because I know there's probably nothing to gain.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I know I heard you touch on it a little bit earlier, but we split 4.5 scholarships between 8 guys. That's right now, not counting the guys that come in next year.
Right, right.
So I'm 40% athletic scholarship, and the other 80%, or quick math, 60% is academic.
Right.
So I'm going to be losing a little over $5,500 a semester just in academic money. So that's really one of the big kickers for me. I don't want to have to sit here and take out a student loan and then go through with 20 hours a week of golf and conditioning and workouts, and then throw master's courses on top of it when I can just work and get the master's degree.
Right, and get paid, and you're going to be graduated. That's the thing for a lot of guys, a lot of people in spring sports, a lot of baseball players. There's golfers around the country who are going to finish this spring season, and they're going to have been eligible. I think I did the research one time. In order to graduate in 4 years, you have to take a minimum of 18 credit hours per semester or something like that. And so I know not everyone does that. And so for some guys and gals, they don't graduate until December. And so
exactly.
For them,
one of my teammates, he's a senior. He was my roommate my first and second year, but he won't be done until December. So this is a perfect scenario for him.
Right. For him, he's not done till December. He can play next year, and he got to play this fall. Okay. Everybody lost the spring. He gets to play next fall, and then he gets to play next spring. So it's a perfect scenario for him. I think I heard you say there's 3 seniors on your roster.
Yeah, we have 3 seniors.
And if all 3 of you guys decided to stay, how many would be on the upcoming roster with the freshmen that you guys may have coming in? What is your recruiting class looking like?
Yeah, we've got 4 incoming that I know of for sure. So that would be 12. I mean, that's a lot for a golf roster, honestly, especially at a school the size of EKU.
Mm-hmm.
We never had more than 10
Mm-hmm.
my previous years. So we haven't heard for sure how they're going to do it financially.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that we know for sure is the NCAA has given us the option to play. So we don't know how EKU is going to handle the scholarship and financial side of things yet.
Well, I talked about earlier the disbursement in terms of each conference gets $600 million a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's to 225 because there was no men's and women's basketball tournament. So on top of the fact that you don't know where the money, how they're going to handle the money. They don't have as much money to deal with as they had before.
Exactly. And then if they do end up, postponing the football season, that's more money that they're not going to have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it's putting everyone in a rough situation. I'm glad the NCAA gave us the option to return if we needed to,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it put the schools in very, very tough positions.
Mm-hmm. Right. Tell me a little bit about your struggle as a D1 athlete, playing a sport. You're not playing, Eastern basketball team probably has 13 scholarships. So,
yeah.
And they probably keep 15 kids. And, there's 3 kids somewhere in Kentucky dying to walk on at Eastern Kentucky, So
mm-hmm.
with the golf program, only getting 4.5 scholarships to suffice for 10 to 12 guys, as you were talking about, how, what is that financial struggle like? Because I think a lot of times people talk about, my last conversation or my last podcast was about, a part of it was about, should college athletes get paid? And I think
mm-hmm.
that what people don't understand is maybe the basketball and football players that make all the money shouldn't get paid, because or they should, but maybe they're on full rides. But a lot of other sports, you guys aren't on full rides. So a compensation or a supplement for golfers and swimmers and lacrosse and those type of sports, that would be, you guys would be the ones to benefit from that. And so, tell us a little bit about your financial struggles, being a D1 college athlete.
Yeah. So luckily I'm fully, with my academics and my athletics, I was on full ride to where I would get a little bit of refund money back to go towards whatever I needed to. And then my parents have just supported me the last 4 years financially as well. So I've been very thankful and blessed to have great parents who support everything and anything that I go through when it comes to golf and things like that. And golf isn't a cheap sport.
No, not at all.
I've gone through golf clubs, especially if you use them hardly, if you use them as much as you should, you'll probably go through a set every year and a half or 2 years, and they're not cheap by any means at all.
Not what you swing.
No. Luckily, the manufacturers and stuff they offer discounts to college players, but it's still, a set of irons can cost anywhere from $600 to $700. That's the college student price. Those are the 12 to 14, $1,500 irons that you get for $600 to $700. Exactly. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so what would that be? Paying maybe Titleist. Yeah. Do you swing blades or do you swing blades?
No, I use. There's no sense in doing that when you have to play when it's 10 degrees outside.
Right.
Because if you miss hit one, your hands are gonna be hurting all day long.
My first ever set of real golf clubs were, I had bought some Tommy Armour 847s, I believe, maybe it was 845s, something like that.
Started out strong.
Well, this was a long time ago, man, and I tell you who I got them off of. I got them off Gordy Jones for like $100. I bought him off Gordy. He bought Josh a new set, and I got him for like $100. And then there was another point where I went and got, I think I may have had like some TaylorMades. I had a couple set of TaylorMades. And then in between those sets of TaylorMades, I bought a set of Titleist irons off of Darren for like $125, and they were blades. And I kept them for like 2 months, and I just could not figure out for the life of me why I couldn't hit the ball straight. And Darren's like, "Well, are you hitting it in the middle of the face?" And I'm like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, look." And very few of them was the golf ball indentions in the center of the the 50-degree mark of the face of the club. And so I was talking to some people, and they're like, "Man, those are really nice clubs, but for the guy that just comes out here and plays in the points game on Tuesdays and Thursdays and on the Duffers League on Wednesday nights, man, you might need some cavity backs. I mean, I was playing 3 times a week, which is more than most people, but still not enough to be swinging those, you know, and just I never really had a lot of, I played golf in high school for 1 year, maybe 2 years, and Mike Scanlon was my coach, and he did a real good job as much as he could, but golf is like a lifelong or you know, it takes a lot of work, you know, and
it does.
I was playing basketball, so I never really cared. I mean, I wanted to be good, but I didn't want to put in the work to be good like I did playing basketball, so it was kind of just like a hobby to me. Do you think not being able to finish your career will haunt you? And I almost didn't ask you this question just based on the fact that you'd already told me that you got to play 3/4 of the season and that there are bigger issues in the world than you know, college golf. And, you know, it seems like it's guys like you and Chris Lofton and you know, Terrence Commodore and, you know, seems like it's guys like you guys, Darius, that are able to put things in perspective that get those opportunities. And I think that's why those opportunity comes to guys like you, because for certain guys, losing a season or, you know, like for Chris, this is about the time of the year where he takes a contract and goes overseas and helps somebody for their playoff run. That's not going to happen for him. So he's out of work this year. And so, you know, for guys that are like you and Darius and Chris and, you know, and T, guys that have made it to the top of the mountaintop and been, you know, Sean, and have been at the top of the mountaintop and played Division I college sports, you guys just seem like so poised and humbled by, it's, you know, as much as I love golf and as hard as I work on it, it's not the end of the world and I'll be fine. So, you know, are you having a hard time, you know, finding peace in it now, or have you found peace? And do you think 20 years from now it'll bug you that you didn't get a chance to finish it the way you wanted?
No, I've kind of found peace with it. You know, there for, you know, 2 or 3 days, it kind of bothered me. But like I said, you know, I've been very blessed. You know, I've got a great support system around me. And I've achieved a lot, man.
You have.
You know, the last 12 years of being, I'd go back and do it again in a heartbeat, but I don't know if it could have been much better than what it was.
Yeah. You maximized your potential.
Yeah. You know, for a 5'8", 130 pound kid, you know, I've accomplished a lot, and, you know, I wouldn't take it back for the world.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When I saw that you signed at Eastern and I saw the picture and stuff in the ledger and I saw how excited you were, and playing college sports myself and knowing how hard it was, and I'm a decent sized guy, you know, and I was just like, man, Tyler's so small, man, and I just hope that he doesn't get discouraged because he gets up there and guys are hitting the ball 320, and, you know, and I was just really worried about how that first year was going to be. Yeah. And I think that when you got a couple starts, I think it gave you some confidence and propelled you, right?
Well, that, and plus, you know, I kind of experienced all that throughout my entire junior career. Mm-hmm. You remember Drew McDonald that played basketball at NKU?
Absolutely.
I played junior golf against him since I was 10 years old. And my mom has this picture of me and him walking up the fairway, and I'm like 1.5 feet smaller than him. And it's the funniest picture you'll ever see. But, you know, I think that just my experiences with stuff like that just kind of, you know, it prepared me for what I would face at college and the aspect of being undersized.
Mm-hmm. So, I didn't realize Drew was a good golfer. I didn't realize that he had some game.
He was going to play golf and basketball at NKU.
Really? I didn't know that. He was, if my memory serves me correctly, Drew was one of the freshmen that were on the NKU team that was the last year of D2 that transformed to D1, I think.
Yep.
I think his freshman year they were D2. They were either D2 last year, or I think his senior year his freshman year they were D2. Then the next year they were D1, but they weren't tournament eligible. And then the next year they went to the tournament. Mm-hmm. I think they went twice.
Exactly. They won
the whole Horizon, I think it is.
Yeah, they won the Horizon League twice.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought he went his junior and senior year.
Yeah, the one year they played Kentucky in the tournament.
Yeah, I remember that. what's your major and you know what are your next what's next on your agenda?
Yeah. So I'm getting my degree. It's a double major. It's financial planning and insurance. That's EKU is like the only program or university in the state that offers a risk management insurance degree. So I'm going, and I hope to know by the end of the week whether I have a job in Lexington or not. So luckily, being in the insurance side of things, that the coronavirus hasn't really affected that too much.
Right, essential.
Yeah, it's an essential. So it's something that's not really been affected. And that's kind of part of that's one of the things that's going into the factor of if I return back and use this extra year or not, is whether, I get, because I've been interviewing for jobs since December. Just because I knew that this was going to be the end, and I didn't really have professional aspirations.
Right.
So I knew that it was going to end regardless in April/May. It was just in March instead.
Right. So, what should we expect to hear? Where should we expect to hear the name Tyler Lippert again? Should we expect to see it on a sign with some insurance? Are you wanting to be a real estate mogul? Are you wanting to be a financial planner? What exactly when you hand me your business card, when I see you at the golf course, what would you probably predict that business card would be?
I'm hoping it'll say insurance.
Okay. Do me a favor when you get that, call me and quote me some rates. Nick Hines, don't shoot me because I know you watch my podcast, and my buddy Nick, we graduated together, and he sells insurance too. But Tyler, it's been a privilege to catch up, man. I hadn't seen you for several years, but I watched you grow up, and you were always a class act, and one of Pig's really good friends, and I really enjoyed you guys' class, you and Darren and Connor and Darrell and Pig and Jake, and I just enjoyed watching. You guys were rough around the edges, but you guys turned out okay. None of you are in prison at this point, so none of you are dead or in prison at this point. So exactly. by the time I was 22, I had lost a couple friends and had a couple friends that were incarcerated, and so that's not you guys' situation. So you hung in there pretty well, but I'm proud of you, buddy. If there's anything that I can do to help, with your job search and recommendation letter or references or whatever, man, just let me know and I'll do whatever I can to help you. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, man. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. So, I hope that with having the two guests, one was a junior softball player and one's a senior golfer. I hope that having the two guests on really helped give you guys a good understanding of the mindset of some of these kids and how they are approaching the situation now and kind of what they were going through when the situation took place. And it's a tough pill to swallow, but it makes me feel very good to know that the two young people that I just talked to are prepared for life after softball and after life after golf and the potential, them reaching their maximum potential on what they could be. So, thanks for tuning in tonight. It was a great show. I'm glad I got to talk to the people I got to talk to. And for now, we are signing out. Little Piccolo Pete to close it down tonight. Episode 14. Episode 14. What loss without a fight? What might have been the loss of a spring season for college athletes and the additional year that they were awarded. Will they take it or will they not? I hope you enjoyed it. For episode 14, the Sports Guru, signing out.